chairpersons from various EMBs, commissioners, representatives of EMBs from across the region, the INEC, under the leadership of Professor Yakubu. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my great pleasure to be here in Nigeria. It's my first time to come to this great country of Africa. And in Kenya, when we make a visit, we normally bring greetings and take some of them back. I hope you'll give me your greetings take back to Kenya when we finish this session. I'm honored to stand before you and address you under the theme of this conference, Opportunities and Challenges in the Use of Technology in Elections. My presentation focuses on the pertinent dual concern of trust and integrity in elections, vis-a-vis the pursuit of efficiency in electoral management. And this paper explores the following issues. One, the background within which electoral technology was adopted in Kenya. Two, the purpose that this technology sought to achieve. The legal framework within which the adoption of electoral technology is being actualized. How the IEBC acquired and deployed in its electoral management in the recently concluded general elections, as well as the fresh presidential elections held last year. The challenges faced in integration of electoral technology, and lastly, I'll be recommending the way forward, both as the Independent Electoral Commission of Kenya and what I believe is the way forward for all of us attending this conference. Professor Yakubu has already said that I managed 2 presidential elections within 2 months. We had the presidential election on the 8th of August. The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, decided that we have to do it again. And so we held the fresh presidential elections within 60 days of the Supreme Court's judgment, which was delivered on the 1st of September. And so I have this an enviable task of having conducted 2 presidential elections within the period of 2 months. And as you all know, the Kenyan election is perhaps one of the most hotly contested elections in the region of Africa. And technology played its role. First, the Supreme Court annulled the elections, mainly on the issue of transmission of results. And then at the center of all this, the issue of technology was the main issue. And I think this forum, I'm here to share, and I believe at the end of it, we shall all learn from each other. At the height of the disputed 2017 election, there are 2 major political parties in Kenya. There's the Jubilee Party and the NASA Party, which is participated in the elections, alongside many other political parties. In Kenya, we have 68 political parties. I'm told in Nigeria you have a similar number. But the major ones are those 2. And the NASA presidential candidate, Honorable Raila Odinga, after the elections results were announced, he came up with his own results and his own logs and said, these are the logs which I've managed to get from the IEBC. But it turned out that the logs which he had, or the results, or the information which he had come from a different database, a Microsoft SQL database. And the commissions runs on the system of Oracle database. So it appears that we don't know where this information was generated from. But nevertheless, he went ahead and said the elections have produced leaders who are computer generated. In Kiswahili, it means vifaranga vya computer. And so, what am I saying here? That technology is as good as the users want it to be. But in a region like Africa, it's not easy to accept that one has lost the election. So at the end of the day, we are looking at the issue of trust. Trust in technology and trust in the people who man the technology. And once we establish how to achieve that, then this conference will be home and dry. So as a result of that, in the Kenyan experience, for instance, we adopted electoral technology for the first time in 2013 general elections, following the recommendations of the Independent Review Commission, IREC, led by Justice Johan Kriegler from South Africa. The promulgation of the new constitution included provisions related to technology as a major component of elections management. This was followed by calls for electoral reform, which were later undertaken by Parliament, and the enactment of election laws 2011, which again were enhanced in 2016. And so we ended up having what we have now, 4 components of technology in elections. We have the component of voter registration. We have the component of electronic voter identification. Then we have the component of candidate management, what we call the CRMS, Candidate Registration Management System. And lastly, we have the component of results transmission. So those are the 4 components of technology in elections in Kenya. Voting is still manual. The voting, the physical marking and casting of the vote is still the manual component in the elections. So we have the law, and this law is being progressively improved. But perhaps to demonstrate the legislative rationale behind the introduction of technology in the Kenyan electoral process, the electoral law carries one main theme, and this is important, I believe, for what we have gone through. Section 44 of the Elections Act says elections must be simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent. So electoral technology must be simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent. So as we use technology in elections, and I want to agree with the framers of this law, this technology must be simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent, because the users, our number one clients, the voters, must be able to understand this technology. The EMBs must be able to understand what they are doing. The politicians, all our stakeholders must be able to understand how we are applying this technology. Allow me to observe that EMBs world over, particularly for Africa, constantly face the accusation, often wrongly so, somewhat that at least we have conspired with one part of the political divide to steal elections from the other side. And this normally, the loser always ends up saying this. When they are not declared winners, they often mobilize their supporters to come out and say the results were cooked. So as we get into technology, it's important that the stakeholder engagement is critical, that these stakeholders must be part and parcel of how we are applying this technology to avoid incidents of this kind. So in Kenya, we used in elections, we used technology in 2013, and more recently in 2017. In 2013, there were major challenges. This was the first time we were using technology. Verification failed, and the commission then had to revert to manual. The results transmission failed, and the commission had to revert again to manual transmission of results. In 2017, last year in August, we had a success rate of 74.45% of transmission of results. That is 30,436 polling stations were able to transmit results both in text form and in image form of the forms. That's we transmit results in text and also image. So 30,436 out of 40,833 polling stations successfully transmitted results. The electronic results transmission in the remainder of the stations was, however, affected by poor network. That is, no sufficient network. 3G network was compromised. However, the Commission managed to invest in satellite transmission devices, and this was completely improved when we came to the October 26 elections. So there's a table in my presentation which shows how the transmission was done. I mean, the use of technology was done in August 8th and also in October. You'll see that in August, there was voters verification was 13,616,129 were verified, automatically verified. The 1 million were assisted by the supervisor model, and this improved later on in the October elections. So for us, this was an improvement and a success rate. As a commission, where one is not able to be verified, we have provisions for manual identification. And we picked this up from, remember when we met Charlotte, I think we picked up part of what Ghana does, and that is Ghana's contribution to us. So, elections in Kenya last year, in terms of other elective positions, many people rushed to file election petitions. There were over 268 who filed election petitions, but only 23 were allowed, and those 23 are still in the Court of Appeal being contested. And so what we are saying here is that elections were free, fair, and credible, and to the extent that only less than 2% were allowed by the courts. So basically, that information is also there. And I want to touch on one very important component in terms of election management. And this is important because we deal with technology. We have to remember that technology must be legally grounded. All EMBs here, I believe, are creatures of the law in your respective countries. And the technologies must also be part of the legal systems so that you move from an informed legal position as we try to improve our election management bodies. So in Kenya, the IEBC is established under Article 88 of the Constitution, which gives us our mandate. And part of our mandate includes registration of voters to areas of managing the elections. I will not go through that, but what's important here is that we must set out to demonstrate that IEBC, like all other EMBs represented here at this conference, are creatures of the Constitution and statutes, and we have an obligation to conduct our affairs within the parameters of the law. So as we adopt these technologies, right from the very conception of the electoral technology, we must consider that technology does not operate in a vacuum, and neither does it operate itself. As I said earlier, there's an interface between technology and the people who operate it. And therefore, the Commission and the Secretariat must be people of integrity, If they are not, then it doesn't matter how much we put in technology, something will always go wrong. In Kenya, the chairman has to be a lawyer qualified to be a judge of the Supreme Court, and commissioners are chosen from various fields, including public administration, financial management, human capital, ICT, and other areas. Then you have the secretariat, who are also established by law under the chief executive officer, who is also the commission secretary. So you have the chairman, who is the national returning officer, and you have the secretariat, who carry out operations of the commission. My experience in the office so far is that this creates two centers of power, so that unless the secretariat actually carries out the mandate of the commission as required, you'll have the secretariat perhaps doing their own things, but when the elections results come out or when decisions are made, it's the commission, the chair and the commission, who take the greater responsibility. So we are looking at the whole structure, and I believe some of you from various EMBs have similar situations, so that we have a situation whereby the chair and the commissioners are able to make decisions without any hindrances from their organizations. And we came in office as a result of negotiated talks between the opposition and the government then in after 2013 elections. And out of 800 applicants, the current commission was created. It's always the situation where anything goes wrong, we have a new commission, another new commission, and so forth. But we have that responsibility. We have a duty to our country, and we are saying, look, we need to transform the institution of the IEBC, and technology is at the core of this transformation. So I'm bringing up the issue on the people, because, as I said, without people, without proper integrity, it doesn't matter what we do with technology. It will always come back to haunt us. So technology in Kenya is grounded under the Elections Act, and that is right in my presentation, that we set up technology to manage registration of voters, technology to manage voter verification, technology to manage candidate registration and transmission of results. And we have a total of 12 legislations, subsidiary legislations governing elections, including technology. In addition to the Constitution, the IEBC Act, the Elections Act, and other pieces of legislation. In fact, we think we are over-regulated in terms of legislation. However, it's always important to be over-regulated as opposed to being under-regulated, because there's always room to maneuver and make various adjustments to the law. I now want to touch on issue of procurement, acquisition, and deployment of electoral technology. In the lead up to the 2017 general election, the Commission, as by law, was obliged to establish Elections Technology Advisory Committee, called ETAC, in accordance with the Elections Act. The team was composed of members of the Commission and Secretariat, a registrar of political parties, representatives from majority party in parliament, minority party in parliament, political parties, liaison committee, and ICT professional body. And there were also experts from relevant bodies. The Commission, through extensive stakeholder engagement, facilitated the review of the KIM's technical specifications as well as provided advisory to the Commission on various stages in the procurement and deployment of technology. The specific objectives of the use of technology in elections in Kenya were mainly, one, to ensure that only authorized voters are allowed to vote, and thus eliminate impersonation of voters. There were talks about dead people coming to vote in Kenya. Of course, with verification, with the device verifying no dead person turned up to vote, and that issue was sorted out. And the other aim of technology is to ensure verifiability, transparency, and efficiency of the voting process, eliminate multiple voting by a single voter, improve accuracy and accountability of the results, and enhance security and integrity of the electoral process. So these components are very crucial, and just briefly touch on voter registration. The Commission is currently embarking on an exercise to register more voters. And in terms of this aspect, we have a disparity. The department running registration of persons is different. Of course, they issue IDs to anybody over 18. We have a different department dealing with births and deaths. The IEBC registers voters, and there's no interconnectivity between these three departments. So that you still have people who are dead in the register, and when we go to the department dealing with deaths, they don't have an up-to-date list of those who have died. So we are working with these agencies to synchronize the data between all of us. This will be to facilitate a more regular review and update of the voters' roll. So network integration of data is crucial for all of us in election management. We have various systems. In 2013, we used what we call the BVR for registration of voters, which we still currently using, but we are also upgrading now to the system of KIMS which we have, so that it can integrate the whole data. So what about the candidate registration management system? This ensures that primary data on candidates nominated by political parties are entered into a format that makes it easy for the Commission to verify the accuracy of the candidate details and compliance with legal requirements and generate ballot paper proofs. This was achieved by cross-matching the voters register and the political party register. What happens in our case is that the candidates are given a link in the system, and they log in names of their candidates from various political parties' offices. So we just give them the access, they log in, give us the names of their candidates, and then we generate the ballot papers, and after verifying that they're in the register of voters and that all their documentation is clear. So this is part of the KIM system which we are using. It enables this candidate registration management system. The same system also does the voter identification, which we have talked about. Voter identification, 3 months before elections, the voters are expected to go and verify their details. And of course, that happened for us on the 9th of May to 9th of June last year, before the 8th August elections. The only shortcoming of that is that it's not compulsory, it's optional, so the voters, about 40% went to verify, the rest of them did not turn up, and of course it makes it very difficult for us to, on election day, some of them come and find their names are not there. So this system caps impersonation and ensures that only those who register to vote in particular polling stations are allowed to vote. However, one feature that was an improvement from the past is that the device has all the names of the voters from that region or polling area. And so if somebody is in the wrong polling center, is advised to go to the right polling center. And that's part of what we experienced in the last elections. And we also have, of course, there were a few cases during verification of people whose fingerprints, for some reason or another, are erased. And that we had to use manual system to verify them. The major part of technology of the KIM system is the results transmission system, which we used in transmitting results, both text and image. And this is, in August, we had a 74% success rate. Of course, we improved on this in the October elections. At the end of voting and when votes have been counted, the presiding officers enter the data and the result sheet from 34A into the KIMS and also take an image of the same. And this is transmitted to the central database, and from there then the same is transmitted to the constituencies, counties, and the national tallying center. And so this mode of transmission is actually meant to enhance transparency by displaying and visualizing the results at the tallying centers, and also provide access of the elections data to the media and stakeholders in real time. So what we did is we created a link for the media and even for anybody who wanted to access the results. And so this was quite as a success story. The aspects of the components of the KIMS technology itself are here in the write-up. I think you'll share that. I don't need to go through that, but it's quite a small gadget. I don't know whether you carried one, but it's very portable and very, very easy to handle. So the Commission invested in 45,000 KIMS, out of which 40,883 were deployed to the polling stations. Each polling station in Kenya has a maximum of 700 voters. And so we arrived at 40,883 polling stations. And of course, the other kits out of the 45,000 were for purpose of emergencies. If there's failure of the kit, then we could replace with the ones which were the surplus. In Kenya, of course, we have geographical network disparity across the country. And so what we did is we decided to work with all the mobile network providers for purpose of results transmission, as some parts of the country don't have 3G network. And so we had to work with all the mobile service providers. The device has 2 SIM cards, so that we have 2 SIM cards of any given service provider who have strength in that area. If one fails, then automatically we pick on or use the other one. So in the lead up to the elections and to support the deployment of technology, the Commission undertook an upgrade of its infrastructure in 2017 to ensure efficiency, availability, integrity, and security of the systems, which included an upgrade of the Oracle database management system, procurement of servers, storage, and data center collection facility, and expansion of a wide area network to all constituencies. We entered into contract with all the network service providers, establishment of a security operations center fully equipped with monitoring tools and staff. And upon assuming office, my commission had to ensure that we employ 47 county ICT officers in the 47 counties, so as to manage this mode of, the issue of results transmission specifically. And so it's important to note that we set up a link during results transmission, and this link is what was available to the public, is still available up to now. If you want to log on, you'll still see the famous forms, that 4As and so forth. They're all still available. Following the Supreme Court nullification of the elections, we had to make adjustments to the electoral technology on the results transmission. And key in this was the manner or the mode of which we transmitted results. In August, the results were transmitted using an SFTP system, which we now changed in October to use a secure VPN. I, as chairperson, decided that I must take control of the results transmission, and therefore, using a secure VPN network, I had to issue passwords to 290 returning officers in the 290 constituencies and ensure that the results are transmitted as required, and also made sure that the forms which have the results are handed over to me, and that we are talking about the presidential results. We also secured assistance from 10 ICT experts from UNDP who were seconded to the commission to assist in network support, RTS support, and consultancy. And we also allowed each candidate to have at least 2 ICT representatives as part of the commission's electoral team, in addition to granting them back-end access at our servers. And also observers were allowed to be part of the team. We also published results and the verification logs after the results were announced in October. And this was aimed at enhancing transparency of the exercise. So I'm simply stating that the more we work with the stakeholders, the more we get their trust, the more they'll trust in the technology and the people behind it. What challenges did we face as an EMB in use of technology? I think these are common challenges which would face all of us. Security and integrity of the database. Over the past decade, the number of system threats has increased. These include attempts by hackers to gain access to systems using known vulnerabilities in systems. For example, denial of service attacks, spyware, malware, phishing, and those junk mails. As the level of automation increases, the investment in the security systems needs to be increased proportionally. In Kenya, we implemented a layered security architecture consisting of 3 main levels of security, namely application layer security, network layer security, and database layer security. So these are the various layers of security which have been put in place for purposes of ensuring that our system is safe. And in database layer security, we use Oracle database platform, which has an audit vault and a follower cluster. I think the security guys will understand that better. We also have improved our infrastructure network connectivity. We have connected all our 290 constituencies with one installation of one, so that we have networked with the main headquarters. 70% of the country is on 3G, and there's an increase in installation of 3G for the rest of the country. But those areas not served by 3G, we purchased satellite transmission devices for purposes of reaching them out. The cost, of course, is there. Kenya has heavily invested in technology in the last 2 elections, and the cost of election continues to raise pertinent questions as to the sustainability of technology. Some schools of thought have proposed that it's time the Commission thinks about building internal capacity and developing local homegrown solutions rather than relying on technology from the foreign companies. We built a local solution for the elections we held for the lost side of Kenya, and I think it was, there were no petitions filed by the lawyers, and so we believe we can, as we go on, we shall manage to invest more and more in homegrown solutions. At the moment, we can say we are conducting one of the most expensive elections in the world, mainly because of technology. There's an estimate of about $25 per voter. I think that's one of the highest in terms of cost. But democracy is expensive, and whatever it takes, we can, of course, work to reduce the cost, but at the end of the day, democracy is not a cheap exercise. The other challenge is technology, of course, is dynamic and ever-changing, that every 3-5 years you find what you purchase today, you need to change it to something else. So we need to find a way of how do we sustain this cost on technology. And one of the areas I believe that we all must work on is the companies we use, our partners from various parts of the world, are usually reluctant to transfer knowledge to our people, our local people, but this needs to be negotiated so that there's knowledge transfer and technology transfer to our teams, our people in our respective countries, so that we can improve on the homegrown solutions. We also we went through legislative amendments. This is also a challenge, touching on technology. And some of the decisions of the courts were being made even a week to voting, which greatly affected the way we managed elections last year. And as a commission, we're working on some proposed amendments to Parliament, and we are telling them, look, don't make changes to the law. At least 6 months to election, there should be no changes to any law which affects elections, and more so the issue of the technology. The courts were also on our case. They went on making judgments even a week, 2 weeks to elections, leading to changes in the ballot papers, of giving us names of new candidates, and more so also on the issue of technology. They went on making orders which affected our operations. And fortunately for us, in 2017, the systems did not fail, and as opposed to the previous 2013 elections. So in brief, that is, those are the challenges we have, which would be, of course, we went through last year. And what is the way forward for us? What's the way forward for this conference. As I said, technology is only as good as the people behind it. Technology in itself cannot guarantee free, fair, and credible elections. There must be willingness to realize the great potential that technology offers through a wholesome approach in reviewing election management. And some of the issues I've picked out are: one, that we must have responsive and enabling legislation to back up whatever technology we want to put in place, so that we don't find ourselves in a compromising position as an EMB. We are creatures of the law and can only actualize that which the law enables us to do. In Kenya, we are currently working on a post-election evaluation exercise which will inform legal reforms, among other things. And I've been touring the whole country, trying to get views from all the counties, from the stakeholders, as to what we can do to make the election in Kenya better. So these inputs, some will translate to legal reforms, and some will help us to change the systems and processes at the Commission. Way forward again on integration of ICT agents from all stakeholders, including political party observers and judiciary. You have the stakeholders, the judiciary, the political parties not understanding what we do. And most of them, they keep on using it as an excuse. Say, we don't know what's in the servers. Can you open the servers? Can you do this and that? So it's important that we deliberately talk to the judiciary, we deliberately talk to our stakeholders, tell them this is a technology in place. Our experts must explain to them what we are doing, and that stakeholder engagement is very critical when you deploy technology. As a continent of Africa, sharing knowledge and experience is key to improving confidentiality, integrity, and availability of systems. Indeed, the success of governments and institutions in Western countries is due to their recognition that system security is not just an IT problem. It's not the problem of my laptop or my phone, but this is a problem everybody who owns a laptop or a phone has. So we must find a way of working together. If it's IT, it's around that whole IT environment. And we must acknowledge that institutions have similar problems and go beyond sharing of challenges to now engage in technology development. This way we shall create new ideas that are relevant to the African situation. What I have in mind is that Africa must set up a training institute on election technology. We have our human resource here. We can tap from these institutes. We can have them engage in various challenges and innovation. And as students, of course, we expect that they'll be challenged enough to give us homegrown solutions. We must also invest in voter education on the importance and functionality of electoral technology on the voters is very, very critical. We must be part of the school curriculums. Whenever schools are having their small elections, we should be there. These children must grow up knowing that democracy is what we are. And this is how we do our things. In Kenya, we have already developed school books for school curriculum, which have already been picked up for purposes of enhancing education on elections at that stage of the youth. Securing electoral technology. Securing electoral technology today should be fundamentally based on the Kharkov's principle, which states that one ought to design systems under the assumption that the enemy will immediately gain full familiarity with them as opposed to securing by obscurity. When you devise or you design a system, just know your enemy already knows what you have done. And the only thing that stops you from the enemy from accessing your system is that key which you have, which the enemy doesn't have. I went to Estonia a month ago, and they have their systems. They have online voting, which is still optional, but the only thing they have is that the very senior people, I think three, the chief of the Electoral Commission, the Minister of Interior, and I think the Attorney General are the ones who who have the key to get the final results on the online voters. And so, as a commission, we have to manage our commissions in a way that the very senior people in the commission should have, the people charged with the responsibility should be at the top in terms of technology. I want to mention quickly on future technologies. The mobile phone is no longer a dream. Everybody, or most people, actually have smartphones. Smartphones now have biometric sensors. Your phone which you have, you can access it through your fingerprint impression. These multiple devices can be interfaced with the EMB's formats, as in voting by AVID or blockchain technology, and they can be a strong enabler for guaranteeing this transparency in voting. So voting via smartphones, which have fingerprint recognition features, is not a dream. It's something we should work on for the future to enhance transparency. I'm told in Kenya, I think we have overtaken Nigeria in terms of being the largest users of internet. That was last month. And so there are so many of our youth are using internet, and I think we need to harness these technologies. We also looking at blockchain technology in electoral management. One of the major problems that we went through as a commission is the fear that at the back end of the servers, something was happening which results were being changed. And in terms of blockchain technology, for example, we are thinking of perhaps having more servers, a server in each of the 47 counties with replicated information, same information as in the central database, so that the chances of anybody thinking or interfering or imagining that there's alteration of results are not there. If you have data spread all over the country or in different servers. And so, in terms of blockchain technology, you're talking about same data, different devices. It's like a distributed ledger in different places with the same data. It makes it very difficult to manipulate any of the information. Online voting is for us in Kenya. The Supreme Court, in its decision way back, directed that we must get Kenyans in the diaspora to vote. And so currently we have Kenyans, 2017 Kenyans in Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Africa participated in the elections. I'm sure there must be many Kenyans in Nigeria and West Africa. We have many in the US and UK. I'm told some are even settling in China. And so according to the Supreme Court judgment, we need to get them to vote. But this is going to be difficult for the Commission if we have to do it manually the way we did last year and in 2013. And so the Commission is working on ways of getting them to vote online, do early voting, and this can only be done through online voting. So as I close, it's important to note that even addressing all that I've shared with you today will not be seen as doing enough. We must remember that in election management, you cannot possibly please everyone all the time. However, we must always do our jobs to the best of our ability, to the highest standard globally, on a high moral ground, with a clean conscience, and leave nothing to chance, and do it within the law. I thank you all for this opportunity to make my brief remarks on this auspicious occasion. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.